So welcome to Business with Purpose. Use your company as a force for good as part of Leeds Digital Festival. I'd like to say a big thank you to Untitled Digital for supporting us today. We've got Jess and Chris on the back end co-hosting with me, helping with all the technical stuff. If you want to just raise your hand and wave, that would be great. Thank you very much. And I'm also joined by Malcolm Seagrave, the MD in the North of Untitled Digital, and Ken Banks, who's the Head of Social Purpose at YOTI. So thank you for that. We're going to start with a bit of an overview of the session today. If I can get this slide up. We're going to be starting by looking at, there we go. We're going to be starting with an introduction to purpose and using business as a force for good, and that's something that I'm going to be taking you through. We're going to be hearing from speakers from Untitled Digital and YOTI, so you can hear firsthand about what it's like to be a business for good and how to do it. We'll be moving on to a Q&A panel where you'll have the opportunity to ask them some questions, and that will be followed by breakout discussion where you're going to be put with about 4 to 5 other participants from the group. And in that, you'll have the opportunity to discuss what you've learnt and start thinking about how you might take action after attending this workshop. And we'll then be finishing off with a summary and the next steps to get you started. At the end of the session, I'm going to be sharing a link to a feedback form on the event, and if you complete that, I'll then send you resources from the session, which will include presentation slides and a great kind of get started guide with links from some of the things that we've discussed. So without further ado, we've got a lot to be covering, so we'll move on. Oh, just so you know, unfortunately, I'm not able to see the comments while I'm doing my presentation. I don't know why that is, but I'm sorry if you're commenting at the moment. I'll respond to anything once I finish my presentation. So I'm going to start with the what and why of business with purpose and using your company as a force for good. I'll introduce myself as well, which might be helpful. I'm Fiona Rass-Jones, and I am the founder and director of Make Impact. We're an agency empowering their companies to use their business as a force for good. We work with forward-thinking companies to help them lead with purpose and grow by making a positive impact on their staff, the community, the environment, and their clients. If you'd like to find out more, please visit our website at makeimpact.co.uk. So I'm going to start off with what's this all about? What is business for good? You've probably heard of corporate social responsibility, B corporations, social enterprise, responsible business. I could keep going. There's lots of different terms for how you can be using your business as a force for good. They're all similar, but also slightly different. Today, we're going to be focusing on business for good. And so doing business for good is using your business to have a positive impact on your staff, the community, the environment, and your clients in a way that is purpose-led, integrated into your company, and aligned with your business strategy. We're going to having a look in a bit more detail at those 3 characteristics. So it being purpose-led, integrated, and the business strategy elements of it. So getting started, moving on to being purpose. There's been a lot talked about in relation to business purpose in the media. I can move on this slide, there we go. The EY Beacon Institute defines it as an aspirational reason for being which inspires and provides a call to action for an organisation, its partners and stakeholders, and provides benefit to local and global society. And so, you know, that's great and that's really exciting, but let's take a look at what that actually means in practice. So we're going to be looking at some examples now. So Unilever's purpose statement is to make sustainable living commonplace. Ella's Kitchen, the children's food provider, I'm sure if you've got kids, you've definitely come across these, is to improve children's lives through developing healthy relationships with food. Tesla is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Make Impact, my company, is to empower companies and their staff to use business as a force for good. Got Untitled Digital, who we're going to be hearing from, and it's to address the digital skills shortage. And YOTI, who we'll also be hearing from, is to leverage the potential of digital identity solutions to help drive positive and social environmental change for everyone, everywhere. And so taking a look at this in a bit more detail, I think that, you know, as I said, there's been a lot about business purpose lately, but there's also the issue of purpose wash, and people kind of creating a broad, exciting purpose statement, but then it just sitting somewhere on a website or being included in an employee handbook, but not actually being lived. I think the key thing when business purpose works well, it's really integrated throughout the organisation. Organisations who do this, they create key measures of purpose and how they're working to achieve that within their organisation. They constantly review it and look at how they can improve it. So I just want to get a key feel for where companies are at the moment in with all of this. And take a look at a poll. So Jess, if you'd like to put poll 1 up on the screen for me, that would be great. So we've got, does your company have a purpose statement? And if yes, do you measure its achievement? So if you'd like to click on the answers there, we've got no, my company doesn't have a purpose statement. Yes, but we don't measure it. And yes, and we measure it. So if you'd like to click on those, we'll just take a few seconds here. They're coming in thick and fast, responses. Any last ones want to come in? Okay, shall we end the poll there and look at the results? So, so that's great. We've got 63% of your companies have a purpose statement but don't measure it. Which is great, and actually a very small amount of your companies not having a purpose statement, which just shows how important this is and how much it's progressed over time. So for those of you that don't, or those of you that aren't measuring it, oh, if we could, Jess, if you're happy to take the poll down, that would be great. Are you able to do that, or we can just click it away from your screens? So yeah, let's have a look at the benefit of having a business purpose. Now, other than a general feeling of positive well-being for you and your staff and everyone, there's also a really strong case for doing it. I'm sure a lot of you have seen Simon Sinek's Starting With Why TED Talk, or may have even read his book. But if you haven't, you really should. But yeah, the key premise there is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, and what you do simply proves what you believe. And you know, we're seeing more and more studies and testimonials from business leaders who are leading with purpose, demonstrating and saying that, you know, part of the reason for their success and their growth is linked to the fact that they have got this purpose statement. So there's a really strong case behind having that as well. So moving on from purpose, let's take a look at the integrated impact aspects of this. And again, I'm going to, I'm having a little bit of difficulty with my slides, but I'm sure we'll get there. Oh, we're going to go back. There we go. So another key feature of doing business for good is having your impact integrated throughout your organisation. And this is a key differentiator of some CSR programs, which can be a separate strand to the business. This is really integrated throughout your organisation. Companies who do business for good consider the key stakeholders in terms of staff, the community, environment, and clients. I've put a few examples up on the slide here to give you a flavour of the ways that you might want to think about how you can create a positive impact for these stakeholders. So for staff, you know, we're looking at salary and contract considerations, key benefits that they might be given, but also their levels of engagement. For the community, it could include social impact projects, charitable giving, and also considering where you're buying from. You know, are you buying from local suppliers, or are you buying from social enterprises or other companies that are doing business for good as well? The environment. So again, kind of looking at the impact your organisation has, kind of carbon, looking at recycling levels, looking at product life cycle, and you know, having a circular economy business model. And for your clients as well, it's really important. So are you addressing a social or environmental issue for them? Do you have good customer service? Do you have mechanisms of continuous improvement? Now, I'm sure a lot of your organisations will already be doing quite a few of these things, which is great. This is just a snapshot, as I was saying. There are several ways that you can consider how you can create an impact through a variety of measurement tools which provide ideas and tips for what you could be doing. They include the B Corp's B Impact Assessment tool, which is free to use. The Business in the Community Responsible Business Tracker. Can also look at the Global Reporting Initiative, their measures. And also there's lots of other industry specific accreditation schemes and frameworks that you might want to use, as well as ones that are specific to particular stakeholders. So for example, for staff, you've got the Best Companies to Work For list run by the Times as well, which is great. I want to stress that you don't need to do it all. The idea isn't to do everything on every list, but to look at, what works for your organisation, what fits with your purpose, your business strategy, what is a priority for your staff and for your stakeholders as well. And it's also a journey. You've got to start somewhere. It's a process, and within all of this, I recommend kind of starting somewhere and be constantly looking at improvement as you go. So yeah, moving on from that. So it's all very nice. I can imagine you're seeing being purpose-led and in integrating positive impact of your organisation, but there's also a strong business case to be doing this as well. So yeah, it's not just a nice thing, there's a compelling business case for doing it. Unilever's purpose-led sustainable living brands are growing 69% faster than the rest of their business and delivering 75% of the company's growth. Now, that's a really compelling statistic. Obviously, it's kind of very specific to them, and there's lots of other factors involved in that. But at the same time, it's interesting. Thinking more broadly about a business case, there's lots of other reasons that you might want to do business for good that might be industry specific. So things like minimising your energy usage or minimising raw material usage, but or also making supply chains more sustainable and reliable, minimising risk. But we're going to be looking at these four in a bit more detail, because they tend to be a bit more universal. So we're going to have a look at another poll. Jess, if you're happy to put the second poll up. I'm interested to know what's the most important factor in your business strategy right now? I mean, are you just focused on purpose, or are we also looking at staff engagement, new markets, investment, or market trends? So if you'd like to participate in the poll now, that would be great. Oh, they're coming in. Okay, so anyone who hasn't voted yet, if you want to cast your vote, they are anonymous, I promise. Okay, we're going to end the poll in just a minute. Any last ones? Okay, Jess, if you'd like to end the poll there, please. Great, well, that's really interesting to see that the majority of people, the majority of votes have gone for purpose being a main part of their business strategy, which is very exciting. We're also then seeing sort of staff engagement and new markets coming in quite highly as well. And I think that that's really key, particularly with everything that's going on with the coronavirus pandemic at the moment. Sort of there's real concerns around how to keep staff engaged, and also kind of how to reach those new markets. And there's lots showing that this really matters to people, and people are making buying decisions based on that. But we're going to be covering that more in a second. So let's have a look first at engaging staff. So yeah, there's a lot of studies showing that purpose-led company staff are more positive, more engaged, and have greater career confidence. We're also seeing a real increase in staff having expectations of their employers to do good. and that they're making decisions on where they work for and what they commit to a company based on their purpose and the impact that they're having. Taking a look now at new markets, we've got, as I mentioned and kind of alluded to, particularly now, people are really interested in the ethics of an organisation, how they're contributing to greater society. And I think we're just going to see that trend growing further. As you can see, for B2C customers, people are making buying decisions based on the ethics of those organisations. But also, if you take a look at B2B, I think there's more companies that are looking at trying to find ethical suppliers. They are, whether they're trying to align with the Social Value Act or they're becoming B Corps, they're joining business in the community, they're making carbon, like zero carbon pledges. They want to be working with other companies that are making a difference. And it's been really interesting speaking to companies at the moment, particularly a local stationery company, that are saying most of their pitch is now focused on the social environmental impact that they're making, because that's what clients are interested in as a real differentiator. So moving on to investment, we'll have a look at that. Here's the next slide. Oh, back again. So being attractive to investors, a lot of asset owners are implementing or evaluating ESG, which is environmental, social and governance considerations, into their investment strategy. And all the signs are just pointing that this is going to be growing, and that shareholders are going to increasingly be looking at and judging companies in their investments on these criteria moving forward. And so, yeah, as I was saying, with the market trends, we're seeing a huge increase in companies using their business as a force for good. And really, it's looking at making sure that you're staying ahead of the competition with this as well. Companies are pledging to become carbon neutral, they're adopting circular economy business models. There is a real movement in this area, and yeah, it's we're really seeing a growth, as the poll showing how many of you have purpose statement just demonstrated. So having a look at that, who are companies that are doing business for good? I've prepared this slide, and this is just a small snapshot of some of the companies that are doing business for good at the moment. The reason I know this is that all of them are certified B corporations, apart from Digital and Make Impact, who are both in the process of applying at the moment. I'll just tell you a little bit about B corporations. It's an ethical business certification. It describes itself as being to business what fair trade is to coffee. They have a robust set of criteria that they have a robust set of criteria across governance, staff, community and environment. And companies score themselves on this assessment and need to score at least 80 out of 200. It's something that you can use for free. You can go onto the B Impact assessment, but if you want to be certified, you need to pay a fee and for your work to be verified. Now, all of them are doing it to a greater or lesser extent, as we'd said. But I think the key thing is that all of them would characterise it as it's a journey, it's a process, and all of them are working towards their broader purpose. So we're going to take a minute now to hear from speakers, so a couple of people on this list, so that you can hear directly from those companies what it means to them to be doing business for good and how it's benefited their company. So we're going to be hearing from Malcolm Seagrave, who is MD in the North and Digital, who are a fast-growing digital transformation agency with offices across the UK. They are 23 in eConsultancy's top digital agencies list, number 10 in the Times Best Companies to Work For, and they have a strong track record of being purpose-led and doing business for good. And as I said, they're also applying for B Corp certification. We'll also be hearing from Ken Banks, who is Head of Social Purpose at YOTI. YOTI is an international digital identity provider. They're winners of the Merit Award for Digital Innovation in the 2019 Global ICT Excellence Awards. They're a certified B Corporation and delivering an ambitious and exciting social purpose strategy. So I'm going to hand over to Malcolm in a second, but during that time, if you would like to message me in the chat with any questions that you might have for the Q&A panel section, I'm going to try my best to to cover what we can and group questions where possible. But any that don't get answered, I'll be including links and tips to in the resource that I'll send out as long as you fill in the feedback form. So that would be great. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Malcolm.
Thank you, Fiona. Hello, everybody. I'm Malcolm Seagrave. As Fiona says, I've in essence set up Digital in the North. We are a company that in essence does two pieces. We build digital products and we build that with in essence a purpose that Fiona referred to in terms of building digital capabilities for our clients. So in essence trying to reduce that skills gap that exists in essence the global market at the moment. We only set up 5 years ago. We are, as the FT refers to, 9th fastest growing company in the UK at the moment. Last time they scored us. We're about 700 people now. Around about 300 of those are based in the north. Started in Manchester, we then set up in Leeds, then Halifax, and more latterly we're up in Edinburgh. We're about to spin out the cloud business, which is part of the technology stack of ours that's been growing really, really fast. So we're going pretty great guns. Before I sort of jump onto it, obviously there's two elements to why we do the business for good piece. There's an element that for me is personal, from my background, and there's a business element to it as well. So the personal element is, you know, I came from a fairly poor background, was supported throughout my early days in terms of council estates, free school dinners, all that good stuff, and was one of the last to get tuition fees paid and grants paid when I was a student. So there's an element, it's in my DNA to do good, and it's almost a debt of gratitude to a degree in terms of why it's important to me as an individual. The bit on the business side, sort of throughout my career, I've primarily been playing in the consulting business, and I've always had, there's always been an element of it, and certainly the latter companies that I worked for, where it was quite profit driven and cash driven, money driven. It never really sat well with me given my background, but needs must and all that type of stuff in terms of roles. So I was fortunate really to meet Paramjit, who runs and founded Digital a couple of years back, and I knew within 10 minutes of speaking to him that he wanted to do something very different in this world. So they're still doing all the exciting stuff that you do as a consultant, all the variety, all the challenges you face on a daily basis. But actually he wanted to set a company up that wasn't actually just profit at its core and money at its core. So we set the company up 5 years ago with a real focus around people, an absolute genuine focus around people as well. I hear the words a lot, as I did in previous consultancies, around it being customer first or people first, but it was always money first. For Paramjit, he set the company up around the best companies framework. So the best company framework, which I think Fiona referred to, we managed to hit the top 10 the first time this year, and in Yorkshire we finished in the top 3, which again, from a personal perspective and from the team, a number on the call, was an absolutely excellent result. But we set that up right at the heart of our business, and so Fiona referred to, obviously the purpose has always been defined, but it being linked to the strategy as well. Now, part of the best companies piece is giving something back, and as we were on that journey, we've gradually moved up that top 100 charts by in essence holding ourselves accountable. Best companies is independent. We are assessed on an annual basis on that, and part of what I said was giving something back. In the early days, we were to a degree doing well on that, but we always, each year, we've tried to improve and improve. But over the last sort of 2 years of setting up in the north, what I saw was in essence driven not just by the strategy and the purpose of the business, but a real drive within our employees, and I can see a couple of them on there today, people like Gareth and Liz, who I know are passionate about it as I am, in terms of having an impact in terms of initially obviously our people and in essence our communities where it started. We do a lot with startups, and again I can see people like Fab and a few others that we've helped out over the years on the call, and charities where we've done lots of pro bono work during that time. to help those pieces out. So we knew we were doing something right, but we also, I saw a lot of momentum within our business, in particular through our employees, who obviously are empowered in how we work to really drive change. Again, I see Rob on there with the work he did with Code First Girls, and the stuff we did with the charities, and so it started snowballing. But what I wanted to do is to, really hold us accountable for it, similar to what we did with the best companies. And so again, I was fortuitous enough to meet Fiona as part of the Halifax Digital Festival when we set that up. Again, with this mindset of trying to help our community rather than it being all about selling and what's happened with some of the festivals I see around the UK. But I very much don't see that in some of the northern ones, especially with the Leeds and the Halifax ones in particular. So we started looking at a way to really build that into the strategy, and the B Corps assessment and B Corps accreditation is where we've sort of hung our hat. And so we are on the journey, shall we say, in terms of trying to get our assessments, but we've used the B Corp thing to really assess where we're at. And again, you look across the sort of 4 areas that Fiona refers to. I think the people side, we've been doing a fantastic job on that, and that's been driven very much by the best companies. But again, even the B Corps is starting to help us focus on some other additional areas. The community side, again, it's in our DNA. It's how we've set up our business. We try and create small clubs locally, none of them really bigger than 100 people. And they really focus on our customers within that region. So it tends to be about 6 to 10 customers, and we really look after them well. So again, I think we're doing pretty well on that. I know we help the startup side, the charity side, and more with the work we're doing, we're getting involved in a number of other business for good. Not necessarily companies, but whether it's charities or whether it's voluntary organisations, all that type of stuff within our region where we're supporting that. So again, we were doing that to a degree pretty well. The environmental side, I think we is an area where we're probably focused on a little bit more now to sort of reassess where we are on that. We're doing some good stuff, and we've got some good stuff that we've got going on within the sort of local clubs around sort of making sure we are carbon neutral and all that other good stuff, which again, products that we will potentially release to the rest of the UK in terms of helping in that agenda as well. And then the client side, we're definitely starting to see a ripple effect with what we're doing, both from what Fiona referred to in terms of the suppliers we want to work with. We want them to have this mindset as well. But also with us building our clients' digital capabilities, we tend to get much more involved with not just building the products, but how they're organised, how they culture is evolving, even how they physically are set up and stuff like that. And so that's allowing us to also work with them and to a degree guide them down this path as well. So for me, it's been it's an exciting part of the journey. I saw the impact the best companies had, and I've no doubt with the B Corps we're going to have a similar impact, because it's linked very closely to the purpose of what we're doing, but it's also going to be heavily linked into the strategy, and we will hold ourselves accountable for the B Corps, with it being independent as well. So hopefully it gives you a bit of a flavour of what we're trying to do with it. But again, really key bit that it's committed to, and it's linked into what we're about as a company, both purpose and strategy.
Great, thank you for that, Malcolm. Exactly to time as well. Very impressed. Thank you.
I would love to say that was planned, but it wasn't.
So yeah, great to hear about the journey. Obviously, thank you for the plug as well. It's been brilliant working with you and seeing that, and I've been learning an awful lot as well about the kind of staff aspect that you're doing. Really incredible work that you do in engaging staff and bringing them on board. So thank you. Right, so I'm going to move now to speaking to Ken, or hearing from Ken. So Ken Banks is the head of social purpose at YOTI. Again, if you've got any questions, thank you those of you who've been messaging me with questions to be asked in the Q&A section. Please keep going with that while we speak to Ken. And yeah, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. I'm going to share a few colourful slides with you, so hopefully this will work my side. Hopefully you can see a lovely colourful slide with lots of little pictures on it. Is that good? Perfect, thank you. So first of all, thanks to Fiona for a huge amount of work she's put in to move this online. I was slightly dubious whether online would work. So far I'm converted, but obviously it'd be great to meet everybody at some point in the future once we return to some kind of normal. A very quick background for me, I've been doing technology work since the 80s and then moved into banking. I'm from Jersey originally, so I had a career in offshore banking, technology within the banking sector. A large part of what's driven me to a more purposeful career is realizing back in the 80s that all of my efforts were simply making rich people richer. And I didn't feel that was a very good use of a life. So I Live Aid in 1985, some of you may be old enough to know about Live Aid, the global rock concert that Bob Geldof and Midge Ure put on for the Ethiopian famine. That changed my perspective on life and made me realize there was a lot of people out there who were less fortunate than me, and that put me on a career which ended up doing about 20 years of global humanitarian work and conservation work, mostly across the African continent. 2 years ago, I got disillusioned with the non-profit sector and moved back to the private sector. And I find I like the clarity of the private sector. I like the fact that as a business, you need to be doing things that people want and people are willing to pay money for. Otherwise, you don't exist as a business. And I kind of felt a lot of the charity sector seemed to be going along the lines of those that told the best stories were able to get the most money. And it didn't quite feel to be such a good measure. So for the last 2 years, I've been heading up social purpose at YOTI. I always find it helpful to sort of think about what purpose actually is and why it really matters. And Fiona has done a really nice job of covering some of this already. But I like this quote from Procter & Gamble about purpose driving an entire organization and being a reason why the company exists. So it's not an add-on. Excuse me. I mean, in a lot of my previous work, I felt a lot of CSR programs were add-ons. They were companies that weren't doing particularly good things for planet or society in their daily activities, but then on the side had a little tree planting program, or were paying for school meals, or doing something which made them perhaps feel a little bit better about some of the other things they were doing, that kind of a greenwashing equivalent. The nice thing about, I think, being a B Corp, which Fiona has mentioned we are, is that you can't really greenwash or purpose wash when you're a B Corp. You are being held accountable. You are being held to a high number of standards. And so if you're a B Corp, then for us, it's a badge of honor, really. It's a sign that we are working very hard to do well by doing good. And I'm very proud of the work that YOTI has done and is doing, of course. Just looking at how we communicate purpose, I'm always fascinated in how you can widen the conversation. I felt certainly in the nonprofit sector and in the tech sector that there's a lot of silos out there, people just are talking among themselves. Fiona's already touched on a couple of social purpose statements from organizations. I wanted to quickly share a couple with you that I particularly liked, which I think gave the essence of what these businesses were about. Merck's social purpose is to gain victory against disease and help mankind. You know, these are usually very short and succinct. Disney's, which I love, to use our imaginations to bring happiness to millions. Again, I think that actually does, for me, really well describe how I feel and what I feel Disney does, certainly for children and for young adults, and maybe for many of us on this call. Johnson & Johnson, to alleviate pain and suffering. Whole Foods, to provide choices for nurturing the body, the community, and the planet. You know, these just sort of make sense. When you know the business and you read these, they sort of just make sense. I feel that ours is still a work in progress. I'm not entirely happy with it yet. It doesn't really compare with the ones I've just read. But as Fiona mentioned before, ours is to leverage the potential of digital identity solutions to help drive positive and social environmental change for everyone, everywhere. Some of you may or may not be familiar with digital identities as a technology, but it's a way of proving who you are online. In an analog world, you would show a passport or a driving license or some other kind of ID document to carry out some sort of function. When you're online buying something from across the other side of the world, that's not so easy to do. So there's a need to digitize your identity to enable you to prove who you are when you're accessing services. But there's also a need to do that so that other people find it harder to steal your identity. People can find it hard to take on your persona and to do things online that you might not want them to do. I'm lucky at YOTI in that our daily activities do generate good. We are helping people stay safe when they go out on dates using online dating services. We're keeping people out of chat rooms for young children by checking the ages of faces within those chat rooms, which puts a stop to things like nurturing and grooming, which are big problems online. We also help people sign documents online to avoid there being too many copies of original documents floating around. But on top of that, the work that I lead on, we've built an entirely complementary social purpose strategy that sits on top of our daily activities, which I'm particularly excited about. And one of them is a fellowship program. We fund 3 individuals in the global south, in the developing world, who are researching difficult, challenging issues around identity in Argentina, India, and South Africa. We also have a toolkit to help people better understand what digital identity is, what it isn't, how it can be used, how it can't be used. Most people are confused. Most people I speak to are confused, and we're trying to democratize the understanding of what it is our sector does. We're also working with humanitarian organizations who are working in last mile locations where there's no internet, in many cases, no smartphones, very little technology, to help doctors identify patients, to help humanitarian organizations working with refugees identify refugees. We've also funded research that's helped, again, our sector better understand what the challenges are for companies like us. We're about to run this year or early next year some innovation-themed challenges, identity-themed challenges around identity, again, with organizations in the global south. And we're also working with a small number of organizations who are building technology solutions where there's a strong need for a trust network to be developed. So say humanitarian field alerts for people working in Afghanistan, where they need to know the people that are in the network are trustworthy and are who they say they are. On top of that, we offer our solutions for free to non-profit organizations. So all our commercial, or most of our commercial products are free for anyone doing socially focused work. Every staff member gets 5 days a year fully paid to volunteer with charities and non-profit organizations. And we have a great meeting space in London. When we are able to get together, obviously not now, we offer that space for free to organizations who might need a meeting space. Just whizzing through these so I don't take up too much time. We also have a COVID pledge. So we're offering our services for free to any organization now working on a COVID-19 response, whether you're commercial or non-commercial. So we've extended that free offering beyond the non-profit sector into the for-profit sector. And the NHS are one example of an organization we're working with to provide ID cards. That was the last slide. I mean, hopefully that's pretty much on time. That hopefully gives you a rough idea of what we're doing. And obviously very happy to answer questions and to talk to people in the breakout rooms. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Ken. That was great, brilliant. I obviously know quite a lot about your work, but it was great to hear about the, you know, the significant impact you're making across the organisation, and to really demonstrate, you know, how it is possible to align what you're doing to make money with your business with that social element as well. So thank you for that. So I've had a couple of questions come through. If anybody else wants to send any last minute questions for the panel, that would be great. We're going to unmute you all now. So when we do that, if you could mute yourselves, that would be great, just so that we can avoid the background noise. And we're going to be moving on to the question and answer section. Everybody all right? Sounds like we've lost the background noise, so that's good. Oh, we've got a little bit of background noise there. Jess, if you're happy to see if it's possible to mute that. Yeah, great. We've lost that now. So yeah, as I said, we've got 3 questions so far. The first one is from Lift Lessons. So if you would like to unmute yourself and ask a question to the panel, that would be great.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm just asking, how do you balance wanting to do the most possible social good, but also having to pay those bills and take care of your staff is there any wisdom that you guys have?
You want me to pick that one up first, Ken? Yeah, so I think it's a great question actually, because it's it's a fine balancing act. I think from our perspective, we keep a real close track in terms of almost a balanced scorecard of what we're about, but also so ensuring that at the same time that we are doing what we said we would do. But we also budget with that in mind as well. So, Ken referred to a great example where we give, we do a very similar thing where we give 5 days each year for people to use on giving something back, or innovation days, that type of stuff, guarantee sort of training days, but we build that into all the budgets. So we build almost the whole business for good agenda into the whole piece. So when we budget at the end of the year, we could make lots more money, but actually we create the buffer zone for all the things that we want to do for our people, for the community, for the environment, etc., into the budgets. And then obviously we try and hold ourselves accountable. So if for one, a great example, if I'm making more money than I should and then notice that all the employees aren't using their training days or aren't using the innovation days, and I know I'm steering the business in the wrong way. So I try and keep true to that bit, and I also hold my leadership team accountable to that as well. So if they're sitting pretty on some good numbers, but the other parts of the equation isn't working, or staff engagement drops or that type, I balance it all up and make sure that we pivot and move at a pace. So we budget it, and then we manage and measure it as well, is the short answer.
Thanks for that, Malcolm. I think one of the key things as well is if you leverage all those areas of doing business for good, including the business strategy, then it should be aligned with your business growth as well. So if you're looking at, engaging staff or reaching new markets, if you design how you do business for good, factoring those elements into your business strategy, you should be able to maximize that. And the more you grow, the more good you can do. So it becomes an ongoing cycle. Was there anything else that you wanted to add to that, Ken, as well?
Yes, please. Yeah, I think Unilever are a very large multinational, international company, so it's not always the best example to use with small businesses. But I think you can see through their sales and through the growth in their business and how they embed purpose into that, how that has actually hit their bottom line in a positive way, how they're actually able to make money by selling products that people feel good about buying. I think it's about doing things that make people feel about good engaging with you. So I know for a fact, for example, with YOTI, all of our social purpose activities that I run, none of them are commercially driven. None of them, in fact, will make us any money. We're not providing services to any organizations that are working in countries where we have a commercial focus. But speaking to staff, I know that many staff have joined YOTI because it's a B Corp, because it's doing good, and they want to work for a company that's doing good. So I think having a purpose-led organization can certainly drive better quality staff towards your organization. And as a last point, I think the easiest thing really that I've noticed over the years is if your business does good just through its general activities. So if it's, if you're an oil company, for example, polluting the planet, say, doing all sorts of kind of fairly nefarious stuff out there, but you're also trying to do a little bit of good on the side, that does very much look like greenwashing. But, if you're a company where you're perhaps providing health services or you're helping people as a daily factor of your operations, and I think it's a lot easier to build purpose in there because you're not trying to balance one side of the business doing good with another side that's maybe not doing quite so good.
Thank you, that's great. So we're going to move on to another question now from David Coakley. If you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask Malcolm about what he was saying around And Digital and how within And you engage colleagues so that they live their purpose through their client delivery. So I think you've talked about the sort of purpose for good or doing good business, but just curious as to how you actually engage to get colleagues fired up for that.
Yeah, look, I think from our perspective, clients tend to engage us because they know we are going to build the digital products. That's obviously an output of what it is, but the outcome they want is in essence us building that digital capability. So, when we sit down with our clients, a big part of it is how we're upskilling their business. And I know when we do it well, and there's a great example, which I know Fiona will know well over in Covea. When we started with them 2 years ago, there was an element of, building their capability. They recognised as a business it needed to be part of their DNA and how they operated. But they also needed to upskill and, grow their workforce in a way that would help them, compete at longer term on that side. So we measure, obviously, delivering the products, but also we put measures around that whole digital capability build and stuff like that. So we know when we do it right, when we can see people upskilling and more people developing new skills. But the real crux of it is when we do it right, we know we create lots of jobs. So, Kavaz is a brilliant example. When we started there, we've created hundreds of jobs over in Halifax, not only from what we setting up there ourselves, but in terms of growing their digital capability and therefore growing their business. For me now, digital is such a key part of every organisation that, if you get it right, you create that element. And then even working with those guys, we're doing loads of great stuff now, that ripple effect I referred to. The Halifax Digital Festival was in essence set up with those guys and Leeds, really pushing that whole agenda. And I know Fiona's involved in those conversations now, but we're probably going to flip that into a charity if we possibly can, because of all the good that's come out of that. So, it's again, the Business for Good agenda has helped us obviously cement great relationship with those guys. But because we go and build that digital capability, we go in a different mindset. We genuinely want to help the customers become better. And ideally, we land and contract is how we ideally operate. But we know in the early days, we will expand their capability and ideally expand their business and their reach. And then back to what Fiona says, the better you do this stuff, the more of that ripple effect you can have in terms of the good side of things. And we have that across all our clients. We go in with this agenda. The people we hire with that mindset. So it really is quite easy from a engagement of the staff perspective, because the empowerment is there and the guys just take it and they just have driven it. And for me, the strategy set, the purpose is set. The guys know they've got my full backing to push that agenda forward. And the proof's in the pudding in terms of what the best company scores come back, but also what we've done for our communities and the people we work alongside. It's all there. There's loads of stuff that we've impacted across Leeds and Yorkshire and Manchester in terms of the bits that I've personally been involved in.
Thank you for that, Malcolm, and thanks for your question. I've got two more questions, but I'm going to leave one to the breakout session. So Nicola, there'll be an opportunity to discuss that then. So I'm going to move on to a question for Ken from Gareth Bell. So if you would like to unmute Gareth and ask your question.
Hi Ken. Yeah, so my question's around the social purpose strategy that you've got at YOTI. It's really nicely refined. It feels very kind of joined up and structured. And I just wondered how you came about that, and how you balance the sort of bias towards action and helping people who are near at hand or causes that are near at hand versus doing something which has got a long-term benefit and which is going to give you the structure that you need to make a real impact for years to come.
Sure. No, thanks, Gareth, and thanks for the question, and thanks for the nice comments. So when I joined YOTI, our main strategy was based around what the company could directly offer. So it was, how could we use the staff to do meaningful things? How could they contribute time to charities and causes? How do we give our products for free and help companies onboard our products where we know there's a social benefit in them using them? How do we offer our great meeting space in Fenchurch Street, right to the heart of the city, banking part of London, to allow charities who can't afford meeting rooms to come in and use that? That was sort of the main structure, but it was all very much tied to the company. When I joined, I wanted to think more sectorally. And I think maybe the first part of the answer is that go beyond the walls of your organization and think about what challenges are there within the sector that you're working in, and how can you solve problems within the sector which maybe don't just benefit your own company in some way, but they also benefit everybody. So for example, I think a nice one there would be, say, the toolkit. If the general public, journalists, media, educationalists, policymakers don't understand what digital identity is, we're pretty stuck. But then everybody's really stuck, right? Not just us, but our competitors and their competitors and so on as well. So we developed a toolkit, or we're launching a toolkit. We're about halfway through, which is designed to help everybody better understand what it is that we're doing, what it is other companies are doing, and how that might benefit them. With the fellows, you know, we realized that in developing countries, there were some pretty serious things going on around biometric capture of people's identities, persecution, genocides. I mean, really quite bad stuff. People in India who were dying because they couldn't access food stamps through government schemes. And so we felt that that was something which was, you know, in some way connected with the kind of business that we're in terms of providing solutions to that. And if we could fund individuals in those countries to research those problems, help everybody better understand what those problems are and how we can fix them, then we can help everybody contribute to building solutions. So if somebody uses that work, a competitor or anybody uses that work to build a solution which helps refugees or helps against fighting against genocide, that's good for everybody. You know, it's not bad for us that someone else has done it, but it's good for everybody. So I suppose to avoid going on, you know, too long, and I'd be happy to connect offline if you wanted to chat more, but I would say the secret is to throw the net open beyond the walls of your organization and think about, at a global level, what's going on that has an impact on what you're doing and where you might have an impact on it. And try not to have too much of an obvious tie between supporting those activities and your business. Because people are always looking for those. Oh, you're only funding that because it's helping you make money. Well, we have no commercial interests in Argentina or South Africa, but we're funding 2 fellows there to do work in those countries. And we almost deliberately chose countries where we weren't commercially active to avoid the accusation of only doing something because it helped us as a business. So I'd say keep some distance between the activities and the commercial side of things, but try to throw it open to just to the wider sector.
Thanks for that, Ken. It's really interesting, you know, about you talking about needing to keep that distance. And I think, you know, everyone needs to find their own way with this and the right way to do it and what feels right. But at the same time, sometimes, like I personally feel that, you know, you can be authentic and kind of state your vested interests sometimes as well, and kind of really make those links, as long as you show that you're kind of going beyond that as well. But again, like I say, there's just so many different ways to do this. And I think, you know, doing business for good starts with, you know, it starts with you and why you want to do it and what feels right for you, as well as an organization, right for your staff, your clients and all your stakeholders.
I'll very quickly add to that too. I think you're absolutely right. But also for me, I didn't want to be spending my energy defending what we were doing, trying to convince people it wasn't a business function. So I decided to have that daylight so I could focus all my energy on the activities. So, but you're right though, they can be more closely aligned, but we deliberately decided not to make them that way.
No, that's great. So thank you. I've taken all the questions from the floor for now. If there's any other questions that haven't been answered, I'm going to try and put that in the resource. So as I said, at the end of this session, I'm going to put a link to a feedback form in the comments. And if you can fill that in, I'll be sending out a resource with all of these slides and lots of other kind of links that are going to be useful to you. And I'll be sending that out on Friday. Help lead us into the breakout session, which we're going to be starting in just a minute, which is, you know, where would you recommend companies start when thinking about doing business for good?
Do you want me to kick off that one, Ken? Okay, from my perspective, I think before you decide you want to commit, I think the B Corps assessment is probably a great place to start, you know, just to get a bit of a feel for, you know, the areas that you could potentially cover. I think it's a great resource. You know, we've used it ourselves to almost self-assess where we believe we are. And I know Gareth was on the call, has then been using that to sort of guide us in terms of the areas we actually probably need to think about. There were some really quick wins in there that we thought were great ideas as well, that one we would have done irrespective of whether we decided to go for the business for good assessment. So start there to have a little bit of a feel for it. I think you have to commit to it if you really want to do it at a strategic level on that side. And then once you've decided that commit, then you know, it's, you know, we were lucky. We've obviously we met you and Make Impact, and you guided us really well. So we've been able to accelerate our plans on that. So again, go out, speak to people who are doing it. So people like Ken and myself naturally open the door for conversations. Anybody who's doing this wants the ripple effect to happen. So, you know, the guys who are out there, the guardians and people of the world who are pushing it, I'm sure would open the door in terms of having conversations to see the journey they've gone on. But yeah, use people like Fiona who can guide you on that path as well. You know, I know she's been really beneficial to us in terms of guiding us, but also accelerating our plans as well. So rather than us sort of failing around the dark to try and work out what's going on, we've had some real focus on it, and now I've got some real push to really get that to the next phase.
Thanks for that. I wasn't fishing for a plug, but that's great. Thank you very much. And what about you, Ken, as well? What would you recommend to people who want to get started?
Well, I'm in a slightly unusual position in the sense that I joined a company that I felt already had the kind of purpose I wanted to latch onto. So I'm an example of somebody who was drawn to an organization that already had purpose built in, but where I felt I could add some value to extend that. But I think for me, you know, the whole B Corp thing is quite important. It's not always easy to believe what you read, particularly these days. So the fact that YOTI was a B Corp was particularly important for me because of the way they're scrutinized and the way they're audited and the way they have to step up and to avoid that greenwashing. So I would say, to echo Malcolm's thoughts really, is to seek out people like yourself, Fiona, who can help people unpick this. There's also a number of books out there which I've read, which I'm happy to share a list of. In fact, I wrote a blog post about 2 or 3 months ago about our social purpose journey at YOTI and how I built the program. So I'll make sure that's shared with Fiona, and then Fiona can then share that beyond there. So I won't say too much because most of it's in that, but I would say, you know, for me, I'm slightly in a slightly different position in that I didn't build a purpose from scratch, where I feel some people may be in this conversation, but I joined an organization which I really loved what they did and wanted to contribute to building that purpose even further.
Great, thank you for that. I think I'd add as well, just, you know, really thinking about speaking to your stakeholders, you know, engaging with your staff, your clients, and looking at the local community, thinking about the environment and what's needed, what do people want, and asking yourself, you know, what's your company for beyond making profit? You know, it's as simple as that to kind of start the conversation and get it going. So I'm going to move on now to the breakout sessions, and I just actually wanted to say a huge thank you to Ken and Malcolm. Your insights have been incredible, and it's great to be able to hear sort of firsthand what it's like from the inside of doing business for good and what that means. So that's great. We're going to move. I will just talk you through that Make Impact supporting organisations to develop their strategy, and really, you know, like a lot of what Malcolm said, it's really kind of investigating that and finding what's right for you and your organisation. And we work with companies to look at that in detail, look at your purpose. If you've already got one, refresh it. If not, help you to find it, help you to look at certain measures and KPIs that are going to be relevant to you, and align that with your business plan in a way that I talked about. We develop a business strategy and then give you coaching and support to implement it as well. If you'd like to visit my website, it's makeimpact.co.uk. And so in terms of next steps, I would love it if you'd fill in the feedback form. As I said, I'm going to be putting that in the comments now, and if you can fill that in, I'll be sending those. But for any of you who want to have a chat or connect, please do. You know, really up for having a conversation, especially at the moment with everything that's going on, if you want to explore how you can do it further. And I'm interested in looking at how we can connect in other ways. You know, can I do other events like this? Would there be interest? What would that format be? There's a space for that in the feedback form, but, you know, looking at other ways that we can encourage and promote this would be great. I'm personally always up for collaboration. So thanks again to everybody, and yeah, have a good rest of your day.